So this is the beginning of a quick tutorial on how to do basic animation in Clip Studio Paint. So one of the things that you notice is I have different workspaces registered for when I'm just drawing and when I'm just animating, and that's just to make it easier so that you don't have to always bring in the palette for animation. And so you just click OK after you registered one, and so here the timeline shows up. I also have a little palette for the animation cells one, which is really more useful for light tables. And as you can see, it looks a little bit differently than I had from before. What you want to do is when you create animation, you want to click the new movie thing, and a lot of these presets there's a lot of extra stuff, but it doesn't really actually matter too much other than frame rate and then the resolution. I just chose with a custom one, and this little thing in the bottom left here tells you how big the blue borders are, and basically when you export it, anything outside the blue border doesn't get exported. And this is so that you can put little notes, or you can or make sure that the scenes don't look oddly cut off sometimes if you just go past the border. So I changed my frame rate or I just left my frame rate at 12. It's just going to be a really quick animation of a ball falling, but as you can see, I can change the size. And you also save custom presets after you alter something. So moving on to the actual animation thing, you notice that um, you start off with the animation folder already labeled 1. The animation folders work very similar to just regular folders in Clip Studio Paint, except each layer, or if it's a folder, is considered a cell, and it's basically for assigning things in the timeline to alter, which as you can see in the bottom, um, to show that it's changing. You can have regular layers too, like I have it for the background, uh, and that just means that it doesn't really change. But just keep in mind you want to extend it to the whole duration, or else you're gonna get that transparency in the background. Unless you want that intentional, then just don't show the layer at all, like your paper layer. But anyways, I just added a quick thing on the bottom to show the floor and to show that what you would do for a background layer. So I just put a quick ball. By the way, this part is the rest of the part is sped up because I didn't want this video to be too long. So I started off with just drawing a ball. And as you can see, I have the second layer, but I can't draw on it yet unless I assign it. And so I can do it in these couple of ways. Or I could actually just, instead of having to create a new layer, I could just click the little icon. It'll create a new cell layer for me in the animation folder and assign it at that spot. For anything that's red, just means it's kind of the selected frame part. I'm sorry, I'm a little sick. So here I am just putting the rest. What I did just there is I enabled onion skin, and I showed you 2 ways to do it, one from the menu and one from clicking the icon on the timeline. It just helps for you to see the previous layers, and you can edit onion skin settings and animation slide menu at the top too. And I ended up changing the bottom part color so that you can see the ball better. Yeah, as you can see when I was doing it, I just didn't really care about the timing, but now you can change the duration of the timing of how many frames it is per second by dragging it, clicking and dragging. You have to click the part by the number. When you see a little red part there, you know that it's selected. I showed a couple ways that you can select it by dragging, or you can hold command and click specific ones. You also select the whole thing at the top and just drag it back and forth. Oh, by the way, I have loop play enabled so that when I play through, I could just see over and over and just point out where the parts is. If I didn't let's see what I did there is if I didn't like a frame, I would just unlink it, and it would still exist in the animation folder layer part on the side. It just wouldn't exist in the timeline anymore, so I can just reassign it whenever I want. So now I'm getting into actually refining my rough animation, and one way to do is to make a new animation folder, and then you'd have to basically kind of recreate and reassign all the layers to the timeline again, as you did for the first, for your rough one. So here I just did it real quickly. Yeah. Oh, by the way, it works in like a hierarchical system, like the same thing of if for regular drawing or folder. So folders on top of the timeline go over the things on the bottom. The other way that you would do it, if you an alternative method for something that I would suggest more complex, that's not just flat colors, is you can use the same animation folder, but do this thing called create folder and insert layer, and I have a shortcut for it. I also have like an auto action to do it for like a whole bunch of layers, so I don't have to keep doing the shortcut over and over if it's a longer animation. So this basically, the folder acts as like the whole animation cell, and you can hide like the layers within the folder so that they don't show in the cell when you're playing in the timeline. And this way that you can just put the final drawing on top and a layer above it within the cell folder. By the way, if I keep going back between cell uh, and layer, it's kind of because I view them very similarly in the program, but um, just see it as like a special type of like layer. So here I'm just showing you how if you just draw it on top of it, it'll completely cover. The only thing like after you finish the final thing is to make sure to hide all your rough layers within the animation folders. Here I ended up just deciding to use the ellipses tool to finish it because I thought it just is going to be faster. Here's just me playing over to make sure that looks okay. Oh, by the way, if I decide that I didn't like the hue, I could go to new layer, new correction layer, and it'll create this special layer which allows you to change stuff. Then for right now, because I just put above everything, it's just changing all the layers. But if I just click it, I clip the layer to over just the animation folder, it only change the ball color. Oh, the final type of guideline things that you can use is like within um, you can enable light table, and light table is just I have my light table docked on the right, and it's kind of weird because they have like two types of light table, and one is like what you can see when you're like working through different layers, and what you can see only for that specific, or different cells, and one for only for that specific one, and then the top one just shows you which one you're at. But basically registering, um, you can click and drag like a specific layer to register it, and then it just makes it easier to flip through like keyframes and just refer back to it and be like, okay, they're supposed to look like this, and then see compare it to what um, the motion or whatever, and see if the volume is working out right and it's consistent, or if you just like, so like what I did here is I compared all the rest of the layers with like the very first ball, which is just a circle, and I adjusted, and a lot of them was I made it too big, so I'd have to adjust it and make slight movements so that it looked like it came from that ball better. Yeah, and it'll show you the registered or the light table stuff shows up in like a slightly lighter opacity, which you can adjust at the top of the animation cell palette. Sorry if there's like a lot of terminologies. That's like kind of weird, but if you're like if you're kind of confused, like the Clip Studio Paint has are also like this really long PDF file for like their guideline and stuff, and then I'm just using what they called their stuff in the book or in the file, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you can also click the bottom like left corner of the animation cell palette to like disable the light layer. From what I understand, animation cell kind of works like you can move back and forth between like the different frames and cells, but then it's also necessary for using the timeline correctly. So I was a little confused by it at first because I haven't used it that much. Yeah. So the last thing that you can do is like export it as a movie, and for Mac it's just the exports at like a .mov extension. Well, as you can see, you can also like have this enabled transparency and change the width and height, but I wouldn't advise you to like make it a bigger height or width if you start off smaller because it's going to mess with the quality of the movie. And a different type of export that you can do is image sequence, and it's kind of takes like each frame of like the timeline or certain frames. I still haven't really figured it out like exactly like how it decides what frame that it'll export into a PNG or like just an image file, and so that you could just like take that and put it into another animation folder. Um, but it's a little confusing the way that they talk about it. And another way that you can do it, as I shown here, is oh yeah, see, this is just me looking at it again because I still don't exactly understand. I had to change the frame rate back to 12, and I wanted to do it, and there's a lot of like extra stuff just for like organization things. A lot of things that you export is export animation cells, and it'll export like all the separate like animation cell files and within their own little like neat little folders. The only downside to it really is that it's gonna be like it's not gonna be all together. So like the image sequence would export just one picture with like the background and like animation cell or like the ball and the background and the paper, but the animation cell thing would actually probably just do the animation cells. Like it wouldn't even do the background layer unless I did that separately. So here's what it looked like. As you can see, it's like closer zoomed up because it's not doing anything outside the border. And yeah, if you have any questions, just comment down below.